Hey everyone, this is Nona from The Aligned Lover. I have another video for you today where we are looking at romantics a little bit more in depth than what I usually do. I feel like this type is very misunderstood, and we have this image of the romantic being a very certain way when they have more range and variety than I think a lot of us assume they do. So first off, I'm going to be looking at Leighton Meester because she has quite a range of body weights available to view online. I know that's kind of creepy, but we can see her through various stages of, body development and body weight. So it gives us a pretty good idea of even just one romantic's variety. So the thing about romantics is the first thing you really notice about their body is their petite curves. They're small, they're round, they're gentle. The curves don't have to be extremely voluptuous like the most large breasts and the biggest hips. It can be more subtle and subdued, and a lot of it is bone structure as well. And I really want to do these side-by-side comparisons with Leighton because you can really see a lot of the qualities in her that differ from non-romantic body types. So let's start off by looking at Leighton here. Let's look at her limbs. They're a lot shorter than this lady that she's standing next to. Overall, her shoulders look a lot more sloped, gentle, not as sharp. Even her legs look a lot more round and gentle, even though she's very, very lean here. Looking at her body, we can really see that she has a very curvy, petite little body. She has those very petite curves, whereas this person has more of an angular body. And there is curve there, but it's not as gentle and soft as Leighton's curves. And just looking at her face, Leighton is really, really round and gentle. Round doesn't mean that your face shape is necessarily super round like a circle, but the curves of your face, the bone structure, the flesh, the way that they are shaped is more of a gentle sloping curve. There's not a lot of sharpness, bluntness, heaviness, angularity, and length to the romantic's face. It's all quite round and contained. So in this second picture, I just really want to point out how much smaller and rounder, more gentle and dainty her face is compared to Blake's. And just looking at her body, we can really see a lot of soft curve here. Her limbs, you can't really see them that much, but you can see that her hips have that soft fleshness, especially the outer thigh. Whereas with Blake's, it's a lot more straightforward and direct, and she just looks a lot more tiny. And in this last picture here, I think Leighton is wearing very high heels here. That's why they're almost the same height, but you can see her limbs are just so much rounder, softer, and shorter. Face is just so much rounder and softer than Blake's, and she just looks so much more tiny and dainty. So let's look at a few more pictures of her. Here, I just wanted to point out her face next to Selena Gomez, who's a soft natural and has more blunt, broader, heavier facial features. Leighton looks a lot more subtle. If you were to paint her face, you would use a much more fine-tipped pen than with Selena. And with this actress in the middle, you can really see how small Leighton's face is. Her face is just a lot more short, a lot less lean, and just more gentle, less strong. In this middle picture, I really want to point out the outer fleshiness of the thigh that a lot of romantics have. They tend to have this curve here. It starts a little bit below the hip, and it really kind of saddlebags if you want to use that term. A lot of people know what that is. That's the only reason I bring it up. It's that kind of saddlebag shape of the outer thigh, that kind of fleshiness. And you can really see it here in this photo, where you can really appreciate how round her outer thigh is and just how soft she is overall. So here I have Christina Ricci next to two very tall, much more broad ladies. So again, with the romantic, the first thing you really notice is their petite curves, and you can really see it here with Christina. Even though she's very lean in this photo, you can still see she has that soft lushness in her body, and she's very petite, very round and gentle in the face, very contained. In this middle picture, you can see she's a little bit more fleshed out here, very round arms, very round and gentle throughout the waist and the hips, a very round chest, and her face is very soft. And here next to Reese, who's a soft gamine, Reese just has a lot more broadness and angularity in her jaw, her cheeks, her chin, her nose, her shoulders, her waist, whereas Christina is a lot more consistently round, sloping, gentle, and soft. Here is Madonna, who is known for her muscles, but if you really look at her body, you can see she's very tiny, petite, small, round face, fleshy cheeks, round eyes, very small, sloping shoulders, small, tiny waist with curve on the chest, and here you can see she does have some curve in the hips. And really, I want to point out how small and dainty she is, especially next to Gwyneth Paltrow. She is just so much more petite. She looks so much more light and soft, even though she probably has more muscle tone than Gwyneth does. Here is Kate Winslet, who is a bit taller and not quite as petite as the other romantics I've mentioned, but she is very, very soft and lush. She has that curvaceous width that I think a lot of us really think about when we think romantic. So in this middle picture, you can see very round arms, short limbs, gently sloping round shoulders, very round hips, softly wide waist, small round head, but quite petite overall. Here next to the other much taller Cate Blanchett, Kate Winslet just looks much smaller, even though she is, I think, very lean here. You can see in her waist. She still has roundness and shortness in her upper arm, and just looking at her face, it just looks more gently wide and sloping compared to Kate, who has a lot more of an angular, square bone structure in her face. And here in this picture next to Shailene Woodley, who I've actually met in real life, she's very tall and she looks exactly how she looks in the movies. She's very lovely and very, very sweet. You can see Kate is just a lot smaller, wider, softer, short limbs, very curvy chest, very softly wide, curvaceous waist and hips. She just looks very, very round. Here we have some pictures of Drew Barrymore. I've already covered her in another video, so I just wanted to do some comparisons next to other people. Next to Nicole Richie, she just looks so gentle. Even though Nicole Richie is known for having a very petite and fairy-like look, Drew looks even more soft and gentle. She doesn't have the sharpness in her nose or in her jaw or in her eyes that Nicole does, and she's just a lot more round and wide, and you can really appreciate it in her cheeks, her chest, her softly wide waist, the forearms. I think they're around the same height. They look the same height here, but if you look at Drew's forearms, they just look a lot shorter than Nicole's forearms. And here in this picture, Drew just looks so tiny next to Kate Hudson and Cameron Diaz, who just tower over her. They just look a lot more broad, blunt, and angular, and heavier than Drew, who looks a lot lighter and softer and less dense. And lastly, of course, I have to talk about Marilyn Monroe. So here, next to this other actress, I don't know who she is, this actress is still quite round and soft, but Marilyn is even more so. She's more petite. She has just a lot more shortness and softness throughout her body and her face, just more gentle. Here in this middle picture, I just wanted to show Marilyn's body in a less curvaceous state, because we tend to just think of her in one certain weight, but she went through quite a few fluctuations throughout her career, and you can see, that petite curvature is definitely there, and they can have some musculature in the arms and in the legs, but what you really notice is this petite, small curve here and the small round face. And here, she looks very round next to her co-star, who has a lot more angularity, broadness, sharpness in her face and her body and her shoulders, more musculature and heaviness in the limbs, whereas Marilyn looks a lot more round and short and gentle and small and petite. So I guess my last word on this video is that if you're confused about being a romantic, definitely look at what stands out on your body. Look at how you compare next to friends who are of different body types. Look at how soft and round you look if your bones are the most prominent feature, if your muscles, your angularity, or your sharpness is the most prominent thing about you. You're probably not a romantic. If you're extremely tiny and narrow with a bit of sharpness, you're probably not. Romantics have a very gentle, curvaceous width to them, and you can really see it in the face. They have a very soft face that just doesn't really take on much sharpness, even if they're at very, very low body fat weights, or body fat levels or weights. So I hope that helps. I think the romantics are very fascinating, and I'm going to look into them more because I feel like they're very misunderstood by us. So I'll see y'all later. Bye.